right? Here's where a lot of parkour gyms get stopped. In a state of elevation, you stay vigilant. That's going to be the breaking point between you and excellence and that accountability. And you either demonstrate that you're reliable in this or you don't work here. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here. We have such a fun conversation today, which is something called, ready? And if you're taking notes, this is something to write down. Performance conditions. Performance conditions. Now, here's something you can think about. With your accountability and with each phase of your business, with each action that you take, you are always working on the skill of that action. I'm working on like how good I am as a salesperson right now. I'm working on how good I am as a coach. I'm working on addressing the operational inefficiencies in my gym. You know, what that looks like is I'm there every single day, like interacting with people, you know, my sales team and my coaching team. Whatever it is, you can hear there's like all these actions, and usually that's what we focus on, is developing those skills. That is not performance conditions. So before I dived into what performance conditions is, I first have to tell you what it isn't. So it's not the actions that you're taking. About it this way. This is a very easy way to think about it. I love this analogy. This will make it super simple for everyone. Imagine everything I just talked about, that's the soccer player. Okay? That is the football player. That is the hockey player. It's the athlete. That's the athlete. There's specific skills to develop as an athlete, right? You got to kick the ball. You got to be able to track it. You have to have some foresight about where it's going to go. You have to be able to control your power. There's all these things you got to work on as an athlete, right? There's all these things you got to work on as a general manager. There's all these things you got to work on as a head coach. But then there's something else that's always at play. It is always at play. And we hardly ever talk about it. Usually we just hope for the best. By the way, if you haven't figured out yet from being on these calls with me, I fucking hate hoping for the best. That sucks. It absolutely sucks when you're hoping for the best. Okay, so we talked about, here we are as an accountability general manager, head coach, business owner. There's all the skills you have to develop as that accountability. But then there's this other thing that we hardly ever consider. And I'm going to call that performance conditions. Now, if the analogy is a soccer player, and that's the skills that we have to develop as an accountability, what's within that analogy? What am I talking about here for performance conditions? What could that be within the analogy? Who wants to take a stab at it? What do you think it could be? If it's not the soccer player, and we're talking about performance conditions, what do you think it could be? What are we going to be addressing? I see some people coming off mute. Yes, Ann! Yes! Yes! Ann, nice job. So Ann just popped in the chat, the field. Yes, it absolutely is the field. And that is something that we hardly ever talk about. We almost never talk about the field when we're talking about performance. Here's what we're going to get into, everyone. So there's this concept called performance conditions, and this impacts everything in your organization, no matter what accountability you are, okay? And what it represents are these distinct phases or circumstances that individuals or teams or organizations move through when they take on any project or task. Okay, so you can consider, we're going to go through some different conditions, and you are so spot on about it being the field, because we have to look at the field that the athlete is playing on. Is it raining? That's going to change how I approach everything. Is it sunny? Are the conditions like perfect? It's slightly overcast. It's 73 degrees. I can see everything perfectly. When I have so much trust in my footing that I can like really extend myself now, I would consider that because of the field that I'm playing on. Is it snowy? And I should be very careful and very considerate of every single step that I'm taking as this athlete. So you can hear the condition or the field that we're playing on really dictates so much about how your accountability, how your distinct accountability interacts. So understanding those conditions are going to help you and your team align their approach within the organization, within the business, and actually come up with actions for what the environment is demanding right now. I'm going to take a moment to just say again that these are universal enough to apply in pretty much any setting within your business. So you can use this to look at anything going on in your business right now, whether it's trying to like improve your facility, or you want to enhance your coaching programs as a head coach, or you're a general manager like overseeing like a cultural shift within your community. By identifying what condition you're in, you can adapt to the field that you're operating. You can kind of adjust your team. So we're really going to be talking about how you're operating, like who you're being and how that works within these different conditions. I'm going to label 7 conditions here. Okay. If you're taking notes, this is a great time to write these down. I'm just going to say what they are. Then we're going to dive into them. First condition, zero state. Zero state. It does not exist. Okay. That's the first one. Number 2, definition. The condition is definition. So we're now in a state of defining something. We're formulating something here. So we have zero state and we have definition. 3 is focus. So we're now actually concentrating on something. We're really zooming in on something here. Focus. 4, the fourth condition is flow. Okay. Another way of thinking about this is that you've built something. You've built something and there's some flow happening. There's momentum somewhere. Okay. 5 is largely the goal. This is called steady state. Okay, 5 is steady state. You are in a state of complete stability. 6 is elevation. Okay, you have broken through something. You are not in a state of stability. You have broken through something. 7 is excellence. Okay, you've mastered it. You can actually now turn it over. You can give it away now. Give it away now. I'm sorry. Okay, so those are the 7 conditions, all right? Now, a context is not a condition. If you were at PK IndyCon, we talked a lot about context, how it's the bread, how if every action that you're taking isn't inside of like expanding and sharing the parkour community, something's off, right? That's context. Something's off. This became about something other than sharing the parkour community in some way. Something's off here. That's context. This is condition. So a context is a created space. A condition, listen to this. A condition is something that already exists with certain constraints. Okay, there's already lines of force that are shaping how you move and how you operate. It's like a groove in the sand. And if I pour water over the sand, the water will go straight into that groove. Okay, so it's going to travel that line. And understanding that is going to help you navigate this, okay? All right. This is the part of the call that's going to be mega useful for you. Mega useful. Write anything down, and this is how it's going to be useful. Listen to this in a way where if you can see which state you're in, then you can see what's missing in that state. Or here's the other thing, what's there that shouldn't be. Okay, a couple things to just illuminate this, to create an example of this for you guys. Who has ever, and please just use an emoji or a hand or whatever, who's ever been in a work environment where there is a ton of stress and urgency where there shouldn't be, and there doesn't need to be unnecessarily? Great. And I'm sorry. Welcome to late stage capitalism. Yeah, so a lot of you guys, right? Okay, cool. Go ahead and put your hands down. And for those of you listening to the call, it was like an overwhelming majority had experienced that. Okay, so that is an example of an operating state, a way of being, a condition being present that shouldn't be. That's there and it shouldn't be. I'm going to take out that urgency and that stress, okay? Because why? We're in an operating state of flow. Things are working well. Why are we operating like this? Okay, so that's an example. Here's another one. Who's ever been in a state of like your business is like about to tank or go under, or there's really some urgency, like there's some stuff going on, and people are like just so chilling about it, and they just, there's no focus, there's no regard for like the danger that's coming up. Okay, yes, so you can see now there's also many of you raising your hands like, yeah, I've experienced that too. You're most likely a leader. If you're relating to what I'm saying, you're most likely a leader that has been looking ahead and aware of the field you're playing on. Guys, it's raining. We should probably adjust our approach. And no one else is aware of the field. That's so frustrating. So this is a way that you can communicate with your team as well. Like, hey, for this period of time, this is what is required of us for how we operate. And it's not personal. But I need you to focus, kid. I need you to lock in. It is time to lock in right now. So, all right, let's get into it. Here are the conditions in detail, everyone. Okay, so the first one is definition. You're defining something. You're in a state of definition. Here's what it looks like to operate in that state. This is where you want to write something down, okay? You're declaring what you're up to. So if I'm in a state of definition, I'm saying, hey, what I'm up to is filling these camps. What I'm up to is expanding this program, or what I'm up to is training these coaches. So you would see and hear communications of saying what I'm up to. The second thing is you're either setting a stand that you have or a vision. That North Star we talked about at PK IndyCon, huge. You have to actually say, hey, what we're doing here is sharing parkour with 1 million people. That is, everything's inside of this context right here, okay? Number 3, you're in a state of definition if you're building communication lines, building teamwork, building relationships. Okay, you're in the process of doing that. Maybe establishing who's talking to who within your company. Yeah, the CEO talks to this person, and I'm going to just say you're with the process you're in a state of definition with now ungluing your accountabilities and figuring out, what is general manager? How am I going to carve that out? Who am I for my gym owner? Who am I for the kids? Who am I for the coaches? And you're going to begin building those lines when they should be talking to you and about what, so that's all super important. You're in a state of definition if you're determining what's needed to get started. Hey, we need this budget. We need this authority. We need this time. This is the constraint that we have. If you're determining like, this is what we need to get started, you're in a state of definition. If you're producing initial clarity, like, this is what this would look like. This is what we're building. Like, if there's some alignment that you're creating with everyone, you may be in a state of definition. Setting ground rules. So this is all of your like check-in, closing things. You got to show up to work on time. We call these the bare minimum performance requirements within our company. It's like, hey, you got to be able to show up at your shift when we scheduled you, or we declare that you're unreliable and put you on a performance improvement plan. And you either demonstrate that you're reliable in this or you don't work here. It's actually a bit difficult, I would say, at this point, using Freedom in Motion as an example. It's a bit difficult to have a job there because we set really high ground rules at this point. But that ensures a high level of integrity for our customers, who are children and parents. Super important. But the last piece of definition, and this is really important before you can move into any other conditions, is you have to establish what can be counted on and who can be counted on for what. So you've got to establish a way to objectively assess the reliability of your team members and the various aspects of their accountabilities before you move forward. If you can't do that, the huge pitfall, and a lot of you, we uncovered this over the weekend, a lot of you fall into the pitfall of, oh man, it's become personal. It's become personal for my staff rather than an objective aspect of their accountability. Okay, that's definition. So we're going to move into the next state, which is focus. Again, if you have any questions or any comments, please let me know. I'm curious if you've identified for yourself an aspect of your accountability where you are in a state of definition. Can I see an emoji or a raised hand? Sweet. Thank you. Awesome. Fantastic. Cool. Okay. And if this is unclear for anyone, please reach out to me. I'm so happy to go into this in detail with you. Okay, focus. Here's focus. You're in a condition of focus if you can clearly define short-term results. Christopher, I will produce 3 registrations for our winter camp in 5 days. Nice. You are in a state of focus. I will accumulate this amount of money in this amount of time. Okay, it's very clearly defined short-term results. The next characteristic is there's a tightened discipline. There is an increase in intensity. There's an increase in efficiency. Okay, so there's a real push to hey guys, we really actually have to we have to concentrate on this. We have to zoom in on this. Right here, listen close. Right here's where a lot of parkour gyms get stopped and businesses get stopped. They get stopped right here. Who can tell me why? If I'm talking about tightening discipline, increasing intensity, increasing efficiency, why do I get stopped right here? What happens? Some of you know because I've worked with you personally with this. What happens? I want someone to share.
Come on, man. Do we really have to be that intense and disciplined and efficient?
Yeah, very good. Yeah. You get some sort of resistance like that. Yeah, very good, Marcus. And that was a perfect example. This is where most people get stopped. And briefly, I will just say this is a whole call and category in of itself called team alignment. You either have people that are aligned, you either have people that are creatively aligned, which means they're going to take all the actions of being aligned, even though they may not necessarily agree with the long-term vision. And then you have people who are not aligned. And they're just not going to take the actions that you are counting on them for. And that sucks. And that's actually where a majority of people end up falling, especially as you get into these organizations that are more established, have more systems that they're really counting on people for. So yeah, that's what happens. There's ways to address that. Please reference our blog for Culture of Gossip is a great way to start addressing that. All right, moving on. High input. Now listen to this. This is important. Low immediate output. Okay. So there's high input and there's low immediate output. There's also actually grinding out results under pressure. Okay. So you're putting a lot of effort in and you're not getting much effort out or results out. You're putting a lot of effort in, not getting a lot of results out in a place of focus. That's normal. The work you do today shows up 6, 12, 18 weeks from now. And we'll talk about this because a lot of times people can get into a heavy, a good state of momentum or they're flowing and then they take their attention off of things and things look good for a little bit. But in a state of focus, guys, there's high input and low output. There's low immediate output. You got to get this a lot. That's just huge. Okay. All right. The next key characteristic of focus is people stick to their commitments. They follow instructions, and you're in a period of really building trust. This is huge. So people, they're demonstrating yep, I'm committing to this thing. I'm going to be there at this time. I'm going to produce this result, and they are sticking to it. They're following instructions. If you're a leader and you're giving out instructions, guys, I need you to follow this spreadsheet. I need you to update this thing. They are following instructions. That's how you know you're in a state of focus. If that's not happening, you're not in focus. You're probably in definition. Okay. You still got to formulate those teamworks and relationships. So when people start really doing what they said they would do, and you really trust that it's going to happen, hey, focus is present. Okay. The next key characteristic of focus is there's no unnecessary talk or bullshit during meetings, during strategizing sessions. You have fully concentrated your attention on what you're doing. Okay, that's a key characteristic. I love hopping into a meeting and being what's the problem? What are we doing about it? boom, boom, boom. And I walk away feeling so respected as my accountability. Okay. So there's not a lot of talk about what isn't necessary. The other key characteristic about focus is you're really promoting strengths and creating a winning atmosphere. Any step forward is like freaking hugely celebrated. Yes, this is the result. We're inching towards what we said we would do. We said we would do this. We're inching towards it. Nice freaking job. You did what you said you would do. That is so awesome. Or, hey, we didn't do what we said we would do, but we showed up. We took the actions we said we would take, and that's what's important. Let's keep focusing on that, guys. We may not see immediate results, but we are putting in the input. We are grinding right now. That is awesome. So that you hear that that atmosphere is being created in a state of focus. The attitude is generally, this is what I said I'd do, and this is what I did. That's the attitude of your teammates. Hey, this is what I said I would do. This is what I did do. This is what I accomplished. This is what I didn't accomplish. You start cutting the BS and start talking about performance. That's focus. Okay, so that's the second state. Go ahead and pop an emoji up if you're following so far and you can identify where focus is within your accountability, within your businesses. Okay, great. Nice. Fantastic. Again, what will be really useful as well is listen for what's missing in your conditions. You may be operating like you're in a state of focus, but then you see, oh, actually, I'm relating to my coaching team like they're in a state of focus, but really they're in a state of definition. I can't count on them for this. Okay. So moving forward, the third state is flow. Here are some key characteristics for flow. You are transitioning from one in to out to one. Okay. So you put in one request, one person registers for an event. You know, it's a 1-to-1 ratio for your actions. You take an action, you see a result. You take an action, you see a result. Okay. So that's one way to determine whether you are in a state of flow. Okay. There's this experience, and some of you hit this at times. I guarantee you'll be like, oh, I've hit this at times. There's this sense of like releasing energy. There's this like spontaneity within your business. There's inspiration. There's a large level of like acknowledgement and appreciation happening across multiple channels, mostly from peer to peer. And there's also like a high level of participation. People are coming to events. You schedule something, people just like show up. You don't even have to promote it. You know, that's one way you can tell like, oh, snap, shit's popping. Nice. You're emphasizing communication over orders. You're using this time to clean up integrity issues. Hey, when we were in a state of focus, I just want to check it out with you that like, I'm really committed that, you know, you have a great time here. And that was tough. For those 13 weeks, we really had to grind out results. And I just want to make sure there's nothing between you and I moving forwards, because I put you under some high pressure there. I would have conversations like that in a state of flow. Now that things have settled, we're experiencing high results, I can take my foot off of the gas a bit, and I'm really checking it out with people. And now's the time to like really up and emphasize communication over orders. Try not to give orders, obviously, but sometimes you have to have demands. You know, I demand that you are at your class on time. If not, here's the consequences. So you do make demands. All right. The next attribute to determine whether or not you're in flow is you're moving from external imposed objectives to alignment and self-generation. Okay, let me say more about that. I just put out a fat article on state management, and one of the key factors that I talk about is something called generative responsibility. The ability to create for yourself that you are responsible in any moment for anything. That's largely a leadership skill that is missing across the board for like most team members within parkour organizations. So if you see a team member that is like, they're coming to you saying, this is the problem and this is how I'm going to address it, and this is what I'm going to do. Hey, Blake, I know that you do the scheduling every 3 quarters. And so here's my schedule 3 weeks in advance to make that a bit easier for you. That kind of like forward thinking is an example of someone that is self-generating. That's an example of someone that is in a state of flow and one characteristic of it. Okay. The last big characteristic that I've identified for this condition is you're expanding naturally. Everything's measured as well. That's why everything's expanding, because you can see the expansion, you can see the growth. You're really empowering others. People are empowered in their positions, not just doing them. And the other key aspect, this is huge. The reason why I'm focusing so much on like celebration and acknowledgement and emphasizing communication is because you're now attempting to move into the next characteristic, the next condition, which is steady state. Okay. So flow is when you start experiencing the results and you're celebrating them with people. All right. That's an easy way of putting it. Okay. That's the third condition. We're moving into the fourth. And this is steady state. This is the goal. I would say this is the goal right here for a lot of people. Here are the characteristics of steady state and stability. You are building a surplus. All of your procedures are standardized. All of your staff are either trained in their accountabilities or have clear pathways for being trained in those accountabilities. And all responsibilities are delegated appropriately. You don't have a coach that is also like resentfully cleaning the facility when you should have a facilities manager, stuff like that. So you're building on your surplus, and that could be financially. Something that I put in place with Freedom in Motion was any month that we go over, we have a surplus, we take that amount of money and we set it aside in an emergency fund to address any time we're in a deficit. This ensures none of my staff members ever deal with hour reductions or, more importantly, pay reductions and things like that. So, and that's because we're in a steady state. All right, so that's one characteristic. You're building your surplus, you're standardizing your procedures, your staff are trained or they know how to be trained. There's a clear pathway to that. Here's the second characteristic. There is a systematic and routine environment that doesn't experience unnecessary changes. Pretty simple. So in this environment, consistency and structure and organization are key. If I walk into any of my facilities, I know exactly where to find a paper clip. I know where all of the precision trainers are. Just everything is structured, and our customers can rely on that consistency as well. Here's the big thing to be aware of in stability, in a state of steadiness like this. You want to be aware of boredom. I've seen it happen a couple of times. Quinn would pop a laughing emoji in the chat if they were still on this call. But I've seen it a couple of times where like a person will just get bored with how good things are going and just put their hands in the cake. Don't do that. Don't fuck with what's working, you idiot. So that's just really important to say. Don't do that. Don't do that as a boss or a manager. Quit messing with what's working. You dummy. All right. So, and that's just because people get bored, and people do this within your organization as well. I'm also talking to myself. You have a winning formula at this point, and you want to make sure it's repeated. Just repeat the winning formula. Don't reinvent the wheel when you're in stability, but be aware of boredom. All right. This is the point where you want to develop your strategy completely as an organization. Now you want to re-examine things. You want to begin to take the time to understand the organization as a whole. You've probably gotten to the point where the organization has grown. It's huge now. It's big. You've got employees and different aspects of it. Now zoom out and look at the whole thing and understand it. It's like an animal, you want to look at it. What's the head? Where's the tail? What's this part of the body doing? How healthy is it here? You start to zoom out a little bit when you're in a state of stability, and you're going to begin setting the stage for elevation if you want. So that's the other thing to do in a state of steady state. A lot of that is designing your interfaces, your KPIs, your CEO dashboard, how people get you information. We talked a lot about it at PK IndyCon. This is called data risk. If you have huge data risk, that's your barrier between moving from steady state to elevation. If you have data risk, if it's hard to get information across channels in your company, if people aren't informed. All right. If you have ever experienced, I'm curious, if you've ever experienced steady state in your accountability or in your business, can I just see like an emoji or a hand? If you've ever like started building surpluses, everything's consistent, maybe there's like, you're a little bored with how great things are going. Has that happened with anyone? Okay, cool. Nice, Joey. Dude, yes. Excellent, Brennan. Fantastic. Nice, Blake. Dude, nice. That's awesome. That's freaking great. That's the goal. Cool. Let's talk about what's next. What you're seeing now is my normal state, and this is a Super Saiyan. So, elevation for your business or your accountability. That was for you, Nick. What happens here? Well, this is where it gets a little gnarly. There's a sudden and unexpected rise in capability or results. Holy crap! This guy's actually really good as a general manager. Nice. He's popping off. I've never seen events go this well. That is so unexpected. Or we targeted 20 people for our competition team and we have 56. I'm gonna have to hire a new coach. That was sudden and unexpected. That's crazy. That's a characteristic. That's like, whoa, you're in a state of elevation. That's something happened there. Your staff, this is largely in your staff for accountability for this one. They're going to demonstrate the ability to handle new levels of power and speed. Damn. Jordan just taught a class of 35 kids and kept them engaged, ran them through every course that we had designed, like did our zoning, like, oh my gosh. Oh, wow. I thought that church event was next week. It's in 15 minutes. I'm just going to put together something amazing and leave them with the best experience ever. These 100 guys coming from this church that I did not expect. And then you do it. Wow, that coach just demonstrated the ability to handle something gnarly. That's an example of a coach accountability. Or maybe you notice for yourself as a leader, you're like, whoa, dude, I just handled that potentially very upsetting conversation about finances with my staff with calm and ease and grace. I left everyone feeling understood. I left everyone feeling confident in what's next. I knocked that out of the park. I just demonstrated something new. You're in a state of elevation for your accountability. All right. So that's the second characteristic. Here's another one. You're expressing a vision at all times. You're taking a stand. You're like, yeah, this is what we're freaking doing. This is why we're doing it. You're expressing it in your accountability. And here's a big one. How do I say this succinctly? I'm not going to. I'm just going to trust that you guys are going to be able to get this. People make cases for themselves for why they can't do something. And if you have an employee that is operating without case, as I call it, that's an example of someone that has elevated themselves. They are not collecting evidence for why they can't do something. They don't make excuses or justifications for why something didn't happen, even if they have all the evidence and reasons in the world for why they couldn't be able to do something. Instead, what you hear them say is like, yeah, let me look at what I can do better next time. Or, wow, what was missing in my performance there? They're not making a case for themselves. Okay. So it's a nuanced concept. All right. So if you have employees doing that, they're in a state of elevation. If you have a sourceful structure to understand and hold your results, you're in a state of elevation. Okay, sourceful meaning it is up to date, in use, it's usable, and it's accurate. I can pull up our KPI and see exactly how many people registered this week, exactly how many people dropped, why they dropped, and I know that that's going to get updated within 30 minutes of one of those actions being taken. That's a sourceful structure that holds a result. Okay, so that's one example. All right, we're going to pause for a second and talk about something massive. I've struggled with this in my own life as an athlete. This is where I got stopped in my early 20s. and I didn't realize it. This is where a lot of people get stopped in elevation, and where they start to revert back. And by the way, it's possible to slip operating states. It's possible to slip conditions. You can jump back 1 or 2. But here's where I got stopped. Was I did not stay vigilant. I started watching my results and got fascinated with them. And I took my attention off of what was producing the result. And you do this in your company, and you do this in your organization, and everyone does in their organization. They take their foot off of the gas pedal. They take their attention off that which produced the result and begin becoming fascinated with the result. So it's very important. Listen, it's very important that in a state of elevation, you stay vigilant. You keep your attention on the daily work that is producing these results. It's very important. All right. That being said, what else you do in a state of elevation is you clean up messes. You've probably at this point made some messes, moving from definition, focus, flow, steady state. You've probably made some messes along the way. It's time to clean them up. It's time to clean up the messes when you're in a state of elevation. It's time to organize. It's time to pay the bills. It's time to strengthen your ability to deliver on what you said you would do. That's what's happening here. You're going to train and support people during this time. Truly support people. Give them everything they need to succeed. And if you've done it right up to this point, they will want to succeed. All right. You're also going to set the stage for what's next, which is excellence. Okay. Last thing I'm going to talk about here, and this is really important. This is another crash and burn moment where people, I come in and I fix this a lot with people. In a state of elevation, you're going to have breakdowns, because if you look at what's happening in a state of elevation is you're having sudden and unexpected rises in results and capability. What that means is you're going to have this brand new, awesome, capable person, maybe they're going to want to be paid more now, which they should. But if you don't have like a clear pathway for that, that's going to be the breaking point between you and excellence in that accountability. One example. So you want to relate to, listen carefully here. You want to relate to any breakdown that happens inside of a state of elevation as an opportunity to break through into excellence. Okay. That's very important what I just said. It's very, very important what I just said. Like if you just stand on top of what I just said and just look out at your actions from that, you can transform everything from that. Any breakdown that you come across in a state of elevation is an opportunity to break through into the next condition. Now, how that's going to adjust my approach as a manager is if I come across Nick, who is my sales director, and he's having a breakdown saying, oh my gosh, dude, I found this huge constraint in our sales pipeline where like 60% of our leads are being dropped. If I am like relating to that breakdown as like a problem, I'm going to be like, dude, what the heck, Nick? Maybe I'm going to approach him in a state of focus. No, dude, get your head down. We need to crank out these results. If I approach him from a state of focus, or something, it's going to be horrible. Whereas instead, if I'm relating to that, because we're in a state of elevation, if I'm relating to that as an opportunity to break through into the next stage of conditions, which is excellence, I would say, dude, that is so awesome. Wow. Thank you for finding that constraint. That may be the one thing that takes our whole pipeline into excellence. Dude, thank you so much. Now, Nick's not being related to shittily, I'll say, for bringing up a problem. He's being related to as like, oh, yes, this is the key to our next level. And that's important that people are related to that way, and that the breakdowns you're actually coming across are those things. You are coming across those, if we take 5% of our actions right here, it'll produce like 1,000% of the results. That kind of stuff you can look at in a state of elevation. All right. So elevation, we've done that. Now let's talk about excellence. And I believe we have definition, focus, flow, steady state, elevation, excellence. We have 2 more. Okay. You all have been such generous listeners. We got 2 more. Okay, before I move into excellence, if you've experienced elevation, either within your own accountability, you've witnessed it in a staff member, or you're Yeah, you can just see it in your business. Can I get an emoji so I can see if we're on the same page here? Is this tracking? Cool. Thank you. Awesome. Wonderful. Cool. Okay, so elevation. Here's what happens. You're breaking through something. Then you're moving into excellence. This is the 6th state. We've hit elevation. We've broken through something. Now we're moving into excellence. And this is kind of mastery at this point. Okay. Sorry. Yeah, we're moving into excellence. So the domain's whole and complete at that point. All right. When full excellence is achieved, you can turn over the project. So if we're at this point with Freedom in Motion, you could take Jimmy and I and Nick, any leader in our company, put them in a sack, toss it into shark-infested waters, sail away, and Freedom in Motion would function and operate and sing, and no one would ever be the wiser that we are now fish food. That is an example of mastery within the company. You could rip out a key accountability. There's no key man syndrome happening in that place. So it's whole and complete. Another way of saying this, some of you did this at PK IndyCon, is that your business has enough value to sell. Someone would want to buy it. If you did our evaluation, you most likely came across that your business is worth $0, at least from that perspective. So if you get your business to a point where someone's like, oh yeah, your business has a multi-million-dollar value, you've hit excellence within your business. Okay, so that is definition, focus, flow, steady state, elevation, and excellence. All right, so those are the six defining states. There's also 0 state, which I talked about in the very beginning, but that's just like it doesn't exist. Okay, so I talked about how to go from 0 state, which is like, this doesn't exist at all, into definition. So that's just important to say. There is a 7th state, and it's technically that first one, 0 state. Okay, so that's all 6. That's all 6 of the important states here. Let's talk about some additional reactive conditions. Okay, there's 3 I want to talk about. So the first one is an emergency, and that indicates slipping back one condition. So if I'm in a state of flow and I begin slipping back into focus, I would say, oh, hey, emergency, we're slipping an operating state. Okay. Usually you can declare an emergency if there's like a lot of breakdowns, a lot of halted actions, a lot of things not working. Okay. And you could be in a state of flow, but then like, oh, suddenly a bunch of stuff isn't working. All right. Hey, I'm going to declare a state of emergency here. So that indicates slipping back one condition. Now, I will also say this. If you add anything to someone's accountability, they're going to slip back an operating state in their accountability, anything. So if someone's in a state of flow and I'm like, Nick, now every time you go into the gym, I would love for you to check the closing checklist, specifically make sure the trash has been taken out. Simple task, but for a short period of time, I should expect that because I have given that to Nick, he will slip a little bit in his operating states, and that will take something for him to get back to flow in his accountability. So there's just being considerate of that. All right, so that's emergency. You're slipping back one. Then there's a danger. And this is if you're slipping back 2. So these are serious issues that need immediate action. Your coaches are staging a walkout. You're not going to be able to afford payroll unless your winter camps have at least 8 students. Stuff like that is when you would declare a danger. And when you do that, listen closely to this. You announce it and you're going to tell everyone, hey, we're going to bypass most normal processes right now. And you should handle the source of the issue and then find out like where things went off and begin really restoring that. Maybe it's with key leaders in your company. Maybe it's with you. I don't know, without diving in with you specifically, who knows? But you want to handle the issue. So but you declare it. This is the important part. This is where people really mess up, is they don't tell people like, oh, danger! It's not going to be normal for the next couple weeks. Usually it's just, the actions start being taken. All right, so now here's a bypass and danger formula, okay? You want to declare the situation. Hey, here's what's going on. And then temporarily bypass the accountable person, all right? If the scheduling was messed up, you're going to bypass scheduling. Seth, you would do this with, like, if you're the CEO overseeing the general manager, Brennan, you would say, oh, breakdown about this event filling or these finances being under 45%. I'm going to bypass you and take over this aspect. And then you would handle it. You would handle it. This is the important part. You handle it. You know what to do. You fix the problem. And then you organize to prevent reoccurrence with that person. After resolving it, you return the accountability over to the original person. You re-empower them, and then you announce that the area is out of danger. Okay, I'm giving you guys a formula to avoid resentment and still handle the BS that happens. So, and you just tell them, hey, I'm going to take this over. I'm going to clean this up, and then I'm going to figure out what's going on, and then I'm going to turn it back over to you. Okay, and then we're going to make sure you really understand it, really have everything you need. And then when you do that, you're like, hey, this thing, nice, you got it again, no longer in danger. All right, so that's like a bypass danger formula. Now, that's the end of the conditions conversation and the operating state conversation. My invitation for anyone on this call is just right now, identify the current performance condition you're in. You know, for a brand new idea, you are in zero state. It's a thought that just popped into your head. You know, if you're locked in and you're delivering consistently, but you're not really going anywhere new, there's nowhere surprising or unexpected, you're in a state of stability. You're in a steady state. And I invite you to begin adapting your approach accordingly. Okay. Set clear communication in place and rules, you know, in focus. If you're in a state of focus, like really let people know that you're going to act very concentratedly. It's time to put our heads down and lock the heck in, you know, and bear with me while we increase our discipline and our efficiency. Or if you're in a state of flow and momentum, like leverage that team's energy for like greater output. You know, specifically, I love when people are stoked and stuff is just flowing. I love like creating a buzz about our events coming up and putting like a jam in the near future and then just capturing all the energy from our business and like putting it into like a big community jam. So just begin to consider where you're at and adjusting your approach, and that's about it. Thank you so much for joining me. I am going to end the recording at this point, and then we'll stay on for just a moment so I can get some feedback.